Welcome to Little Podcast That Could. It's great to have you here, Desiree.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure.
Good morning.
So once the new album for you comes out next year, you'll be 8 deep. So is it getting easier to make music, or is it harder because you don't want to repeat yourself? You can almost steal from yourself when you get that far into a career.
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm always writing. Like I'm just always writing, and I try and like just stay open and inspired by like details. And I try and pay attention to details. And like I think some of like the coolest songs, Jamie Johnson's a perfect example of that, like he picks like the smallest thing to write about and just like create this big story around, like maybe it's a guitar or yeah, I'm just always writing.
Desiree, can you take us back to the beginning a little bit? I was reading somewhere that as a kid, you used to take your bike to a concert site and you used to climb up on the stage and, pretend you were performing. And so how cool is it, or how surreal is it that you're actually doing that now?
I've had to pinch myself a few times over the last year, especially because it's been such a crazy year for me. Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I grew up a mile from the site of Dauphin's Country Fest, which is the longest running country music festival in Canada. And when I was a little girl, I would take my bike and bike to the festival site, and I would park it in the ditch, and I would climb the fence and literally commit a break and enter into the festival site.
Yeah.
And then I would make my way onto the stage, and I would always go backstage first. And I would, pretend to put my boots on and pretend to like do my makeup in the mirror because they had the mirrors up all in the dressing room all year long. I would pretend to like grab my coat off the hook and put it on and like get ready and give myself a little pep talk in the mirror, and I'd put my lipstick on and my eyeshadow and all of that stuff. And then I would make my way onto the main stage, which is a huge grandstand. And I would pretend that there would be like thousands of people in the crowd, and I would run around like a fool back and forth on the stage pretending to perform to an audience that was empty, but in my mind everybody was there.
Right.
And I played that stage for the first time in 2014, and then we played main stage again this year, which was incredible. Yeah, it's pretty surreal.
Yeah, it's like you manifested it, right?
Yeah, as like a little girl, and it's funny because like I grew up in a town of about 7,000 people, and it's kind of a place where most people know most people.
Right.
Or there's like 1 degree of separation from someone that you know. And so I think when you grow up in a small town like that, it's hard to dream, I guess. Like it's hard to really have, like sometimes it's hard to think big because you're in these 4 walls, you're pretty, like I was pretty sheltered and pretty, it's just, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I think like it's hard to envision, the places that you can go. And like, I wasn't a kid that grew up with family that traveled, we weren't well traveled. We weren't, yeah. So, playing these big stages and, having, we played in Toronto this year. We played in Paris. We played in Hamburg and went to Berlin for music meetings in Germany. And it's just like, yeah, I've had to really pinch myself a lot this year because I never, even in my biggest dreams, I never dreamt that I would get to do this for a living in the way that I'm doing it.
I know what you're saying. Like I grew up in a small town in BC in Summerland for grade 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like, I think what you were trying to get at, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think what it is that when nobody leaves, it feels it's impossible for you to leave too.
Yeah. And I mean, there's an element of that. There's also just like a beautiful simplicity in living in a small town. and like, and I still live in my small
Oh,
town.
you
I live here with my kids, and I do, yeah. And I love it. My kids have the same teachers, some of the same teachers that I grew up with. And like, they're safe riding their bike to go visit their friends. Neither of them have cell phones. My oldest is 14 and my youngest is 11. And I don't feel like they need to, because I know that they're safe. Like, it's just a safe place to be. There's something really beautiful in the simplicity of that, being able to go to the grocery store and say hi to the same lady who's been working the cashier register for 20 years, or going to the bakery and ordering your kid's birthday cake. And, it's the same lady that's been there for forever. Um, yeah, it's just like, it feels almost like some things never change in a small town, which I think then, like, I don't want to use the word restrict, but it maybe like minimizes, or like, it's hard to see the big picture when this is your picture day in and day out, and it's hard to envision much beyond the perimeter of this little town when it takes you 4 hours to get to an airport,
and also,
so
when we were kids, there's no internet. It's like different
no,
for kids now, because if you live in a small town now, sure,
totally,
at the click of a button, you're seeing the world. But like when we were kids, that
exactly,
wasn't the case.
exactly,
And how far
Yeah.
did the apple
yeah.
And
fall from the tree? Like, are your kids musically inclined as well, or
No, no, they really don't think that I'm very cool right now.
you could be Jimmy Page and
They
you're still
really,
not cool? Like,
yeah,
join
yeah,
the
like,
club.
yeah,
Join the club.
yeah,
Yeah.
they really have no interest in what I'm doing, unless it's like giving them a cool experience. And we
I
opened for
think,
Jackson Dean, and my kids are
oh, okay.
huge fans of Jackson Dean, and I am a huge fan of Jackson Dean. So that was like one of the few times where they were like, "Hey, mom, can we get some VIP passes? Like, do you think can we come backstage with you? Will we get to see Jackson Dean?"
Right. All of a sudden they're fans, right?
All of a sudden, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
when like we get a gig in Toronto, or when we went to Europe this summer, or this fall, hey, can we come with you? And those kinds of things. So when it's an opportunity or an experience that they can benefit from, then mom is cool.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. I think all kids are like that, right?
Yeah.
Desiree, can you tell us a little bit about your style? So you sort of planted your roots as a country artist, is that right? But you've since evolved to sort of a more Americana sound. Can you tell us a bit about that transition and what you view as the difference between the two?
Yeah, I mean, about 3 years ago, I took a good look in the mirror and I was like, okay, we are not 20 years old anymore. And when you look at the country music world, women especially who are breaking and who are, hitting main stage or mainstream stages, are not typically my age. And so the businesswoman in me was like, okay, this is just a fact. Like, it's not to it's just the way the world is right now. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. It just is what it is. And so, knowing that, I was like, I don't want to just, like, I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet and just walk away. Like, I've put my life into this, and I love what I do. Like, I am so passionate about, writing and making music and performing, and that I knew that something would have to shift in me if I was going to have any longevity in this business. And then I started going back to my music catalog, because I still use a paper and pen to write my songs. And I was like, holy heck, like, we actually have a lot of stuff that wouldn't fit in the mainstream mold. Like, and so I started going into my vault, so to speak, of songs and pulling stuff out and revisiting some stuff. Um and I just realized that, like, I have a lot of music that doesn't fit into into that mainstream box that I was trying to fit into, and that I could draw from and pull from and, revisit and tweak and edit and mold it into what I think is more, roots Americana stuff that wouldn't typically be heard on a mainstream country radio, but might have a space at a folk festival or at an alternative country festival of some kind.
You're starting to
Makes
see some
sense.
more Americana radio stations too popping, certainly in the States. I mean, it's going to probably take a little bit of time for here in
Yeah.
Canada, but like, they're a band like the Eagles. That's Americana in my mind. Like, I think that's like the stuff
Yeah.
that was influencing me as a little kid, and a lot of it was that style of music, not necessarily country, but more roots leaning Americana stuff.
Totally. Yeah. And I think we're seeing it even in more mainstream country, like trickles of it in the US. We're seeing like Miranda Lambert does a lot of stuff that isn't, pop country in the typical country music lane. Even some of Lainey Wilson stuff isn't sitting there. And like watching the ACMs this year. We just watched it this week on Tuesday night, I think they were. Stephen Wilson Jr.'s singing Stand By Me, and like it was incredible. And Brandy Carlisle singing with Patty Loveless, like, so there's pockets that are opening now, I think, for, um, you know, more
Differences,
voices.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, more voices and variety.
Right. And so having said that, then as an Indigenous artist, how do you incorporate your Cree teachings and philosophies and ideas into your music? And does it lend itself easily to that? Or how does that work out?
I mean, I think in some cases it has, but in many cases it hasn't. Like, how can I explain that? Like in 2020, I recorded an album called Break the Chain, and the title track on that record is a song that I wrote about the impacts of intergenerational trauma. And, my grandmother being a residential school survivor, my dad being a day school survivor, and me being a mom with two daughters, wanting to just, and I think that the country music format has, and the lane that I've managed to carve out for myself has enabled me to, bring this message to a certain extent to a mainstream audience. I've performed that song during, Canadian Country Music Week, where, that isn't a typical story that's being told, uh, in those audiences or in that space. And I think the really beautiful thing about that is that it's allowed me in some way to use the tiny platform that I have to bridge a gap, to hopefully create a little bit more empathy and compassion and understanding with folks who may not otherwise have access to those stories, or may not seek out those stories, or seek to learn, the truth about our history here. So, yeah. So I think that I've woven it in like little ways.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
have songs like that I share
Yeah.
from time to time, and that hopefully have an impact. But then also, that isn't all that I am. And so being able to then share, like, one of my songs that had the most commercial success is a song called Sometimes I Drank, and just being like a mom that, like, sometimes my kids drive me nuts and I just want to sit and have a glass of wine on a Friday night, and so I think being able to humanize myself as, like, I'm just like everybody else, I'm just living in my house in a small town, raising my kids, taking them to volleyball and hockey and all of that
Uh-huh.
kind of stuff, and but also, like, this is where I come from. And
Right.
I think that that's been a really great way to foster more understanding and compassion.
I too
Right.
like to drink.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Cheers.
So we're,
Next time we do this, we're doing it with a
yeah,
beer
I
or
was gonna
something.
say it's a little early for that here, but I mean, maybe we do an afternoon next time. We're
Yeah,
talking with
yeah.
a seven-time Manitoba Country Music Award winner. She has a chokehold on that part of our country. When did you start singing, and like, when did you realize that, hey, I've got something special here?
Oh my gosh. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to show you guys something. So when I was 13 years old, I played a show at a banquet in northern Manitoba. And there was a fellow there who saw me play, and he was involved in some kind of an investors group. And they financed my very first record when I was 13. So I grew up in Dauphin, like I said. There were no studios in Dauphin at that time. And so I took the Greyhound bus every weekend, not every weekend, but like every second weekend, I think on average, to Winnipeg, where I recorded with a fellow named Craig Fotheringham, who was incredible. But the funny thing about the story is that, like, I'm 13. My mom is putting me on a Greyhound bus by myself to go 4 hours south, where I'm being picked up by a man she's never met.
Yeah.
And we're working in studio for a weekend. And then he's the one taking me back to the Greyhound bus where I'm coming home. Now, thankfully, he was a good human being and he took really great care of me. We would work in studio Friday night. I would take a transit bus after that to my family friend's home, and then transit bus back to the studio with him to work all day Saturday, transit bus back to my family friend's home, and then transit to the Greyhound bus on Sunday morning to come back to Dauphin. And like, I've got a 14-year-old now. I can't
No,
imagine.
not happening.
No.
No.
Like,
The answer
Yeah.
is no.
not
It's a hard no.
not happening.
Times have
Yes.
changed, right?
But this was the product. This is what I was going to show you. I was 13 years old, and that was my very first. It's a cassette tape, so it shows you
Wow.
how
Yeah, I saw
how
that on
very
your Instagram. I
how
saw that.
very
That's
old
crazy.
I am. Yeah.
That's great. It
So
feels like there's a
that was
song in there somewhere. The Greyhound bus. Maybe it's called
I
Greyhound.
know. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. But so that project though, I mean, uh, the songs are terrible.
It's a start.
But they're written by a 13-year-old
Yeah.
kid, right? Um, but what that project taught me, because that allowed me to work part-time in music as a teenager. Like I was hired for corporate events and banquets and, hockey banquets. And, we traveled all across Manitoba and Saskatchewan when I was 13, 14 years old, even Alberta, some places. And it just taught me that, like, people are actually paying me to come and sing these songs, and it kind of just ignited that little, like, thought in my brain that, maybe this is a possibility.
Sure. And you also get like the insight into being in a studio, how these things work. Like it's
Yeah.
super, think of that as, when you were a kid and how it blew your mind. Like,
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it also speaks to your work ethic, and it seems like that is huge for you because you're also a lawyer, right? So it means you went to law
Yeah.
school and everything. Do you still
Yeah.
practice law?
I do. Yes, I do. Not nearly as much as I did. I went to law school for two reasons. Initially, I wanted to be a lawyer, like when I was fresh out of high school, because I wanted to choose a career that would enable me to finance my music career, basically. And then I had really bad advice from a guidance counselor in high school who said that I
Imagine that.
wasn't
How's that
right.
happen?
Who said
That's
that?
weird.
Who said, yeah, right. And but she basically told me that, like, I wouldn't be smart enough to do law school and that I should consider something else. And so I started off in social work, and I did a year of that in that faculty, and I hated it. Like, it was not for me in any way, shape, or form. And so I quit social work, and I phoned my mom and I said, like, I'm dropping out of university. Like, this isn't for me. I don't like it, and I'm going to find something else to do, but this isn't it. Of course, she was devastated. And I went and worked for a child and family services agency. I started there as a receptionist, and within 6 months, they had promoted me to the role of, like, a worker, like a CF, a child and family services worker. And I was working for a northern remote First Nation community in Manitoba, in Shamattawa, actually. And at one time, Shamattawa had the highest suicide rate in the entire country. And so a very troubled community at that time, and with a lot of complex challenges. But there were also, like, in my experience there, the people were lovely. They were beautiful people despite all of their struggles. And there were so many injustices that, I witnessed firsthand at 19 years old. And, you know, for instance, like children would be apprehended from their parents, and then the parents would be served legal documents to attend court in Thompson, which you had to fly to get to. And so, like, just things like that that just didn't sit well with me, even at 19. You know, when I didn't have kids, I had very little life experience at that point in time. And I just thought, like, this is bull. Like, I need to do something about this. And so I applied to law school and I got in. And so yeah, so those were the two reasons. Initially it was like I want a job that's going to pay for my music career, and then it became something that, like, this is, you know, something that's really close to home for me as someone who is an intergenerational survivor of the residential school system, and very much views the child welfare system as an extension of that. um it's like I call that my heart work. So that's the piece that I'm not willing to give up just yet.
So then you sent your
Yeah.
guidance counselor a card that opened up and it was a middle finger. Was it,
A
Yes.
pop-up
Yes,
one.
I did.
Yeah.
outside of music and law, are you big into sports? Are you watching what the Winnipeg Jets are doing? Do you care?
Okay, so full confession, I like last year, I could have cared less what the Winnipeg Jets were doing. But my partner got me into playoffs, and we went to almost every
Come on,
whiteout game.
really? Wow.
And like,
Nice.
yeah, we drove down to
No.
Dallas to
No way.
watch, yes, to watch them. They lost, but it was like I was a monster. Like, it turned me into a monster. Like, I could not miss a single whiteout game, and I was like, what is happening here?
A true fan.
Yeah, yeah, it converted the whiteout converted me to being a Jets fan.
So
Yeah,
you're on board. You're watching.
I'm on board. I'm a sucker. Yeah.
That's funny. Desiree, you have been, I was looking at your award nominations, Juno Award nominations, winner of all kinds of awards, MC, MA awards, Indigenous Music Awards. If you looked back at all of those nominations and awards, which one do you think means the most to you?
Hmm. Good question.
Whew, that's a good question. That's tough. I don't know. There's probably three. I don't know that there's one over the other, but I mean, the Juno nom was really flippin'
Mhm.
amazing. Like,
Of
that was
course,
That's
like,
crazy.
I will never forget the day that I found out that I was nominated. I was sitting at my desk doing legal work, and they were announcing the nominees, and my face popped up, and I jumped out of my chair, and I was like, what the hell? As
yeah,
if.
yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, I was 7 months pregnant, 8 months pregnant when the awards rolled around, and I didn't want to miss anything. Like, I didn't want to miss a single a single minute of the experience. And so, like, Juno day comes along, and I'm up at 5 in the morning, and I'm doing hair and makeup, and there was a bunch of media stuff happening, and I'm like 7, 8 months pregnant. And we go to this honoring, they did an honoring ceremony for the Indigenous nominees, and it was just a full jam-packed day of stuff. And by the end of the day, it was like 3 a.m. when I finally went to bed. My feet, I'd been up for almost 24 hours at 7, 8 months pregnant. My feet were so swollen. I'm wearing high heel shoes
Oh,
all day. I refused to take them off.
oh man,
And, like, they never went down. The swelling in my feet did not go down until after I had my daughter. It was like
I can relate.
You're like,
punishment.
worth it.
Yeah, I told worth
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Worth it. Yeah, so that was, like, insanely amazing. And then the Indigenous Music Award was really cool when I won that for Album of the Year, because it's like, that's my community, you know, and that's my friends and my peers that, you know, thought enough of the work that I was doing to recognize me in that way. And so that was pretty special. And then my
Uh-huh.
third favorite would have been when Chris Bergafni and I won for Songwriter of the Year for a song called Whiskey Nose, which was on my 2017 album, just because songwriting is like my first love. Yeah, and so that was pretty cool.
How many song ideas do you have, you think, in your iPhone in notes?
Oh my gosh, I can actually show you how, like this is
Awesome.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
So
So a few,
you got a
just
bit,
a few.
Yeah,
got a bit on the run there.
I got a few things going
Sure.
on in my brain. Yeah.
And is it always the same?
And so your last
Sorry,
album,
is
I'm
it
sorry,
always the same?
sorry,
Like,
Todd.
do you always kind of like come up with lyrics first, or is it a riff maybe, or like how do you write songs? Is there a method to the madness, or is it all over the map?
It's never a riff first. I'm not, I can barely play guitar. I do enough to chord and like, get ideas out. Which is why I love collaborating because I think there's so much more room when you're working with somebody who, is able to play an instrument. But for me, it's typically lyrics first. Other times I'll just be like humming like a little melody in my like, and often I'm driving. Like I'm always in my car, and so often it'll come as like a melody with lyrics while I'm driving, and then I'll just voice note that down if I'm on the road somewhere. But if I'm at home, I'll just pull out my little writing book and sit down with my guitar and see what I can whip up on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. And your last album from last year, right, was Remember Your Name. And
Hmm.
can you tell us a little bit there's a title track of that name. Can you tell us the story behind it?
Yeah, I had been going through just some real personal stuff in the trenches. And there was one day where I found myself curled up into the fetal position on my bathroom floor. And I don't know how long I was there. Might have been 2 hours, might have been 4 hours. I have no idea. But I just sobbed. I like literally curled up in the fetal position, sobbing. And then I got up and I looked myself in the mirror and I said, like, and I literally thought about my mom and my grandmother. And as I'm looking myself in the mirror, and I said, Desiree Dorion, that is the last fucking time we're going to find ourselves on the bathroom floor. And I said to myself, remember who you are. Remember where you come from. The women that whose shoulders you're standing on are way stronger than this. And we're not doing that again. We're not going there again. And that was what inspired that song.
So it's very empowering then. And do you listen to it and do you use it as a memory of that empowerment to boost yourself forward sometimes when you're feeling down or like,
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
like, and that's what songwriting really is. Like, it has been the best and cheapest therapy that I could have ever asked for, to be honest, And they're like, yeah, Remember Your Name for me is one of those anthems where it's like, okay, when stuff really starts to go on and you start to feel like, overwhelmed or whatever, it's like, no, we got this. We're okay. We're moving on. Um, yeah,
And it must be
definitely.
weird for storytelling and songwriting where you have to finish in order to release it, right? And there must be songs where you're like, ah, I wish I could go back and redo this one line or the way I got into the pre-chorus, or do you know what I mean? And on
Yeah, I
and
mean,
on
I
top of
don't.
that is a two-parter. Are there any songs that you've done you wish had done better,
Oh,
or
yes,
surprised
yes.
it didn't
Like I
do better?
recently, no, I haven't really been surprised in that way, but like I recently scrubbed an entire album because I was like, this is not how I want to represent myself anymore. So I just took it off of everything, and because it's just not where I am anymore, and
And what was it about it
it
that you
was
don't
just
want to be anymore?
like a lot of the lyrics are very fluffy and very like emerging. And I think that journey is cool for me to document personally, but professionally, I don't need everybody like going back to what I did in, you know, the year 2010, listening
Mm,
to like some of the very first stuff that I recorded.
right. And
Yeah.
so do you feel that pressure to remain current with trends that are happening now? So like you said, you don't want to throw back to 2010 because no one's really living that experience anymore. Is there pressure to do that?
Well, I mean, the 2010 thing comment is more in line with like, I just wasn't writing great songs. Like they just weren't up to par. And so I don't feel that pressure anymore because like experience and having lived 15 years as a songwriter since then. I mean, my I've just evolved just naturally because I've been doing it enough now. I mean, I would also say that like when I was working in the country music genre exclusively, the pressure was more to like write commercially viable songs, you know, and try and fit them into that box so that you could get airplay, so that you could get radio play and all of that stuff. And now I'm just doing what I want to do. Like I don't feel that pressure anymore because I feel like I've worked long enough where we're being hired for gigs, you know, we've got work coming in. And I just want to do what I want to do now. Like I just want to be as authentic as I can be with the little audience that I have and show up as that authentic person every single time I take the stage. And so I in actuality, I feel less pressure now than I did when I was trying to fit myself into that box.
Interesting.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Desiree. I know that you have a really busy schedule. It was great to meet you and great to talk to you. Can you tell us where we can and our viewers can catch up with you and find out more about you?
Yeah, I share most of what I'm doing on Instagram, Facebook. I need to get better with TikTok, but Instagram, I'm Desiree Dorion. Facebook, I'm Des Dorion. TikTok, I'm the Desiree Dorion because Desiree Dorion was already taken.
Okay.
There's another Desiree Dorion in the South who is a
And
horse
probably like
rider.
so
I found
inactive.
her.
You're like, come on, give me the freaking app.
Yeah.
Give me my TikTok. Yeah, and then just my website and
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
music is on all streaming platforms, all that good stuff.
Sure. So we will link all that information in the caption as well. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. This
Thanks,
was a lot of
Desiree.
fun.